News here into CBS Sports HQ, where the Cincinnati Bengals have acquired quarterback Joe Flacco from the Cleveland Browns. That's the latest from our NFL insider Jonathan Jones. The Bengals have been struggling since Joe Burrow went down with a toe injury, losing 3 straight to fall to 2-3 on the season with Jake Browning at the helm. They are on the road to play the Packers this Sunday afternoon. And with that, we bring in our NFL insider Jonathan Jones joining us now. So Jonathan, with this news, how much does the signing help the Bengals?
Well, it helps them a lot more than where they were yesterday, right, Tiffany? They finally understood what truly and honestly was evident and obvious to the rest of the NFL. They weren't going to be able to stay afloat with Jake Browning as their quarterback. They were really relying on a couple of years ago and how well he played, a winning record there. But when you look at how Jake Browning has played this season, it wasn't good enough. It was not going to help them be competitive by mid-December when they hope that Joe Burrow will be fully recovered and able to play and return from that turf toe injury and subsequent surgery. And so they turned to Joe Flacco, a rare in-season trade for the Cincinnati Bengals. They don't ever really trade for players. And a rare interdivision trade. Rarely do you see this happen and take place within a division. It's taking place now between the Cincinnati Bengals and Cleveland Browns of the AFC North. A rare sort of helping a division rival. Unless, of course, the division rival may know something about the quarterback. We see right there Joe Flacco's numbers this season. If you go back to last year, when he was with the Indianapolis Colts, only one quarterback, actually no quarterback has a worse passer rating qualifying than Joe Flacco since the start of last year. He did not play well for the Colts. He has not played well for the Cleveland Browns and ultimately got benched for Dillon Gabriel. So the magic that he had at the end of that 2023 season that helped the Browns make it to the playoffs has not been able to be recreated. And so the Browns saying that they can do without Joe Flacco. Best of luck to you in Cincinnati. They're willing to help out the Bengals in theory, or maybe, of course, they know something about Joe Flacco and his level of play that the Bengals may soon find out.
I do want to get to that. I also want to say I was on the sidelines, and I've been on the sidelines for a couple of Bengals games where Jake Browning has been the quarterback. And coming off of the one where Joe Burrow goes down with that toe injury, this team just had so much confidence in Jake Browning. So it might be saying a lot about what they think about him right now. And then what I want to ask is, how much does this say about the Browns' confidence now in Dillon Gabriel having traded away Joe Flacco?
So we'll start with Cincinnati, where you were at that game with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars should have won that game. When the backup, when the top 5 quarterback of the team goes down and the backup comes in and throws 3 interceptions, the other team always wins that game, right? And ever since then, Jake Browning hasn't been able to do enough. Another couple of interceptions. They play the Broncos the next week. They only muster 3 points. The next week, he throws multiple interceptions again. And so, yes, there was a lot of confidence in Jake Browning. Again, I think it was misplaced. And so now the Bengals are more or less admitting that, turning to Joe Flacco. Now, what does it say about Dillon Gabriel? Well, they had already made the move, the Cleveland Browns had, to Dillon Gabriel ahead of their game against the Minnesota Vikings in London. They were never turning back to Joe Flacco unless there happened to be an unfortunate injury. Once you go to the rookie, you're not really going back to the veteran who's on a 1-year contract, the veteran who does not have a future with the football team. And so they believe enough in Dillon Gabriel. They like what they have in him. The scouting report was he makes good, quick decisions. You can move him out. I think the coaching staff probably should have helped him out a little bit more down the stretch in a winnable game against the Minnesota Vikings. But the Browns do feel comfortable and confident in moving forward with Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders as their 2 quarterbacks in a season where they should have more wins than they do right now, just the one, and sending away Joe Flacco to Cincinnati.
All right, JJ, the trade deadline then is November 4th. So what do you anticipate maybe for these 2 teams or even just the league as a whole?
So I actually had a story earlier this weekend on CBSSports.com about the top quarterback names and how there were no calls on them. Cincinnati had not made a call on a Kirk Cousins or a Russell Wilson. The Giants haven't fielded any calls for Russell Wilson. People keep talking about Jameis Winston. He's on a 2-year contract with the Giants. I think the Giants want to keep Jameis Winston. They'd be willing to part with Russell Wilson if someone is interested in him. Kirk Cousins is going to be a difficult name to move because of his $27.5 million contract this year. A lot of teams, first of all, they can't take that on. Most teams don't want to take it on. And then how much would the Atlanta Falcons want to eat of that? You look at the Joe Flacco deal. It's a pick swap 5 and 6. But also, Joe Flacco just has about $800,000 in remaining base salary. That is going to be what the Cincinnati Bengals wind up paying for the rest of this season. One other name, Anthony Richardson. Colts have no interest in dealing him. I've heard a couple other names out there. What would the San Francisco 49ers do? Perhaps once Brock Purdy is healthy. They have Mac Jones. Mac Jones isn't going anywhere. 3-0 as the backup to become the starter on a 2-year contract with the San Francisco 49ers. That's not going to happen. So this was a much needed trade for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns could do it because they don't need Joe Flacco anymore. They've moved on from Joe Flacco. I don't know that we're going to see a whole lot more trades right now, right? We're still 4+ weeks away from the trade deadline. Things will pick up probably 2 weeks or so from now.
After today, we are certainly going to be looking forward to see what happens throughout the rest of the league. JJ, great insight.
Which is already without Najee Harris for the rest of the year due to a torn Achilles. That means it'll be Kimani Vidal and Hassan Haskins splitting the workload for at least the next 4 weeks. Meanwhile, Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon addressed the viral video in which he confronted Amari DeMarcado after a critical fumble on Sunday. DeMarcado dropped the ball short of the goal line, resulting in a touchback for the Titans. Tennessee rallied from down 21-6 to get their first win of the season. Gannon said he wasn't happy with how he handled himself in that moment.
I woke up this morning and didn't feel great about it, honestly. And so in the team meeting, I addressed it. I apologized to Omari, apologized to the team. And I just told them I kind of let the moment of what happened get the better of me there. Obviously, like I try to be emotionally stable and calm because my job is to solve problems when during a game and kind of lead the charge on that. So it's not really who I am, who I want to be, and I told the guys that today.
Well, Gannon's Cardinals will look to bounce back as they visit the Colts on Sunday. But taking a look at the Sunday CBS slate, Chargers coming off back-to-back losses facing the Dolphins. Meanwhile, Dylan Gabriel will take on Aaron Rodgers for the first time in his career. And
a playoff caliber team with championship-like aspirations. But the one but with all of that we said, they're still 4-1.
Yeah.
So what happens when he finally hits that stride of mental consistency along with field consistency? They can really be set up to do something real special this season. And hopefully he comes along to the party to play to the level that we believe he